Hello, I'm Carl French from The Endless Bookcase. We're a publisher, and I'm delighted to say that this interview with Julie New is something we've managed to organise. Julie is an author with lots of other things that she does, and the best way to introduce Julie is to ask her to introduce herself. So, Julie, could you just tell the people watching a bit about yourself, and then round to how the book's got written?
Gosh, right, okay. Well, hello everybody. Yeah, I'm Julie New, and I am a Hertfordshire girl. So I was born and bred in Hertfordshire, and I started my life as a nurse and a midwife. So that was my kind of initial career. I was 20 years in the NHS. And about 2005, I had a kind of knowing that I needed to follow a new path, which took me towards becoming a personal coach. So what I started doing was really specialising in helping people after difficult life change to move through and beyond that, and to really start, living their lives again. So so that's kind of my sort of basic background. When I was 11, I knew that one day I would write a book, but my English teacher didn't think that was a very good idea. I'm sorry to say, Carl. Mrs. Lowe thought I was a bit rubbish, and she kind of laughed at me.
Now we know Miss Lowe is rubbish. She got it wrong.
Oh dear. But yeah, it kind of put me off for quite a long time. But I think with any kind of writing, I've always written. I've always loved writing, but I never really knew what I was going to write a book about. It was all just a knowing that I would one day write a book, but I didn't know what the book would be about. Shall I tell you what the book?
Well, yeah, but just before that, I mean, I think that's wonderful what you just said, because I think a lot of people have this thing in the back of their mind that they would like to write a book, because they like writing and so on, and they feel they've got something inside them, but they just don't quite know what to write about. And then eventually something happens, or whatever, and then the idea for the book comes along. So what led you to? Why did you decide to write your first book?
Yeah, well, what happened was I after a couple of years of coaching, I had enough money to kind of brand what I did, and I was branded with this kind of bright orange sunflower. That was my logo, and it set me thinking, well, if Susan thinks I'm a sunflower, because she said, you're really positive, you always have this ability to be able to turn towards the sun, and she said I stand tall in most weathers, and blah blah blah. And I thought, well, if she thinks I'm a sunflower, what are you? I think I've asked you that question before now. You're probably still thinking about it, but you're a herb, shrub, flower, tree, or something else. And then I started sort of thinking, well, life, which is what I deal with a lot in my work, is actually very much like a garden. So it became a tool that I started using in my work. So if you don't look after a garden, what happens to it? Who are the flowers in your garden? Who are the people that you surround yourself with? So after a couple of years of actually working with that analogy, I don't use it all the time, but it's something that's sort of I found has worked really well with people. I eventually wrote my first book, which is a gift book, and it's called Who Are the Flowers in Your Garden? And it was published in 2012. And it's been really popular, actually. The purpose of it is to help you think, make you think more deeply about your life. It's to help you. It's got stories in it about people's lives, and there's exercises in it that you can do to look at where you are in your life. So that was my first step into into publishing. Publishing my book, or writing a book.
Yeah,
because it's a process, isn't it? Writing a book is a complete process.
And when you met, you'd already got the book published, and it was very distinctive. I remember when I first saw your book. You know, it's visually.
So it's pretty colourful, isn't it?
It's this square cover, and
and it's hardback as well.
Yeah, it's hardback. So it's a lovely book. It was nice when we started collaborating, and you were writing your second book. It was possible to carry on this kind of visual theme, if you like, even though I mean there are links, but your second book, the most recent one, is obviously different, and you obviously had the success behind you with the first book. So what would you say led to the writing of the more recent book? And I don't know, you've got a copy to hold up there as well.
So my second book, again, it was another kind of knowing that I was ready to start writing again. I kind of got this kind of itch to start picking up a pen, and I write longhand. So I don't know whether you know this, but Joanna Trollope actually writes longhand. She likes the sound of the pen on the page or the pencil on the page, and I'm the same. But I'd had two really difficult experiences life-wise in my own life, and I just knew that the next gift book that I needed to do was grief. You know, I needed to talk about the path, the journey that we go on when we lose somebody that we love. So the book is specifically for people who've lost a loved one, and this was the result. So here it is.
There it is, the grief
garden
path. Yeah. And
the grief garden path.
Yes. And would you like to elaborate on what the idea is behind the title? Because I think the title is quite interesting, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it actually started off as when a favourite flower in your garden dies.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't know if you remember that.
I do, yeah.
And it was only really a few weeks before it went to print, actually, that we decided to make that change. It was my copy editor, and she said, actually, what this does, Julie, is it takes people on a path, on a journey. You know, when you lose somebody that you love, you're suddenly on this path that nobody ever wants to be on. Let's face it, it's a horrible journey to you know to experience, but it's something that everybody at some point in their lives are going to experience. And she just felt that the grief garden path, the actual word grief, needed to be in the title. So that's why we changed the name to the grief garden path. So it's really the journey, and what I wanted to do was to really help people to understand the journey that they're going to go on. Everybody's journey is completely unique and, you know, completely different, and yet we all experience similar emotions. You know, we all experience, and I think to understand that, but then in turn have people's stories, including my own, of course. People have come back and they've said they feel understood. They feel they've developed an understanding of what they're going through, but they also feel understood. They feel comforted. They feel, you know, as though they've got some kind of hope that one day they will feel better. You know, that they will feel joy again, because there's a long period of time, and you can't say how long that garden path's going to be, that journey, but I think that's the thing. It gives people that hope, you know.
I'm sure,
in a very simple way.
And having unfortunately myself had a number of griefs in my life, including someone I was quite young. I think especially the first time that somebody experiences it is this, you alluded to, this sense of, you know, never being right again, and you know, under a horrendous cloud or whatever, and having a sense of somebody understanding is marvelous. So just picking up on a couple of points. I mean, I asked you about the title, and to me, I think it works really well. And what almost as an aside, but I think it's worth for other people listening. A lot of people start off with a title for a book, and they get quite obsessed with it. but often the really good title comes very near the end, and it is sparked off by somebody making the kind of comment. And I think what's happening, I think it's great that you took on board what somebody was saying, rather than suggesting, you came up with a really good title. The other thing, the other thing I found quite interesting, is you talked about writing longhand. Roald Dahl, who is obviously a famous writer, especially for children. He's one
of my faves.
I saw him interviewed once, and he had this a box on his desk. He used to write, he was writing in a hut, and he had a box on his desk, and he said the first thing he did when he sat for writing session, he sharpened all the pencils in this little box ready to write.
Can I show it? I've got to show everybody this then. Hang on a sec. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, there. Yeah. Down on the floor here.
Oh, right.
Can you see?
Quite a few.
I don't know whether you can see them, but I've got masses and masses of watering cans with pencils in.
Watering can, back to the garden again. So, an obvious detour there, but it's an amusing one in terms of your cats. But more serious question. I mean, who would you say? I think you partly answered this actually, but it's worth doing it. Who would you say should read the book? And I think it's also a gift book. So can you explain a little bit more about that? And who should read it? And who might buy it? And,
So this book is for anybody who has lost somebody that they love, somebody they've loved with all their heart. But it can be for, because quite often people don't know what to say. So it can be that you can gift somebody a copy of the book, because, and this has happened a lot actually since we published, that people have actually given copies. One actually landed in Los Angeles just a few weeks ago. And it was actually somebody whose mother lives in Los Angeles, and she'd lost her cat. Now she doesn't live near her grandchildren, so her cat was her absolute world. But when the book arrived, her sister had just suddenly was on intensive care with COVID, and she actually died. So she's found that the book has been a real comfort to her. Just to have it. It's not something that you'll read it once, but then you'll perhaps dip back into it again. So it's for people to buy for themselves. I mean, I've also got my very first funeral director who are actually gifting my book to people after they've when they book a funeral. So I think it's something that you can. It's a coffee table gift book. I wanted it to be something with my first book as well, was that people can just pick it up, open it at a page, and they're inspired by some words, or a picture appears, and they're like, and they read a little bit more, and they discover, and but it's also about learning where you are on your journey, because there are two models of grief in there. The very, very first one by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but also another one by Dersheimer, who I saw this, was on a PowerPoint with Stephen Regal. He's a professor in trauma, and he endorses my book. He really loves it, and it's just a very simple. Where are we? Where am I now? I mean, as you know, Carl, my younger brother died just 4 weeks ago.
Yes.
And if I look at where I'm at on my journey, I've been taken back again to being on the grief garden path again. And the other irony, of course, is that just weeks before the book went to print, I made a decision to change the dedication, and actually the book is actually dedicated to Richard and Rob. Now the real irony is that my brother is also called Richard, so it's now dedicated to the three men in my life who have passed away and have taught me what it is to grieve and to be on that garden path. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think it's for anyone really, you
Mm.
know, and it's just my wish to reach as many people as possible who have gone onto their own grief garden path.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I think people being aware of your book, so when that unfortunate situation occurs where somebody's friend is experiencing grief, then
Yeah,
maybe the idea will come into their head. Oh, actually, I don't know really what to say to them, but maybe this will help.
yeah. And
Yeah,
you can, and they can write a message as
yeah,
well.
indeed, yeah,
There's a
exactly. Yeah,
space for
it's
that.
personal. You sharing things. So great, and I'm really delighted to hear about the funeral directors, because I think that's an area where a great deal of value and benefit can be added. But we'll get to how people might get hold of the book in a minute. But just before we do that, it would be nice just to. I think you've got plans for writing some other books at some point before too long. You're rather tied up at the moment, I know, with the current one and its promotion and so on. But
Yeah.
I think people listening to this interview might be interested in what might be coming next, even if they're sort of outline plans, so to speak. Yeah. So
Yeah.
What's going to happen next?
So,
well, I see when. What might happen?
So the next one, I always said I'd one day write a book called "I Wouldn't Wish a Divorce on My Worst Enemy."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I think probably the next, what I'd really like eventually is to have 6 life gardening gift books.
Yes.
So like in a box set.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I think the next one would be something like that. So it would be to help people who have been on that awful journey of divorce and separation, because the thing that I do as a personal recovery coach is I help people who have been through difficult life change, and that can include the loss of a loved one, it can include the relationship breakdown, it can be illness, disability, whatever. So so I think that will be my next one, and I have actually got a pad of paper at the ready when I feel that urge, but I don't think it's going to be yet.
No, you've got plenty of pens when you want to write, haven't you?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, loads of them. Yeah.
Right, okay, well, we probably ought to start drawing this to a conclusion, Julie. What would be nice if you could just, I mean, I can put details on the screen when this is edited, but if you'd just like to tell people watching this how they might contact you, website, whatever else, and social media, and then we'll put that on the screen. So if people are interested in you, your book, and maybe your one-to-one help and so on, how do they contact you?
Right. So my website is julienew.co.uk. It's not dot, it's .co.uk. And I'm on all the social media platforms. And
they're linked on your website, I guess. Yeah.
They are. Yes.
Yeah,
They are. So it kind of depends on what you use. So if you're a Facebook fan, I'm on there. Instagram, Twitter. I'm on all of those.
No, we'll put that on the screen, and then people will be able to find you, make contact, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. Just finally though, I just wanted to say that the £1 from every copy, every sale of the Grief Garden Path goes to a charity that I've supported for quite a number of years, and it's called the Good Grief Trust. And actually, the CEO of that charity wrote the foreword to my book, and very much supports the Grief Garden Path. And actually, it's their summer read this summer. So
2025. Yeah. I
wanted to just put that bit in.
On that earlier, Julie, but I'll put something on the screen so people watching this will be seeing information relating to that.
Definitely, because it's support that is so important. After you've lost a loved one.
Yeah, no, thanks for raising that. That's a really important point. I'll just mention, and again, put something on the screen, that if you're watching this and you'd like to purchase Julie's books, one of the easiest ways to do so is to go to theendlessbookcase.com where you can find Julie's books, purchase them, and obviously have them sent to you. So that's the easiest way to get them, but they are available through other channels. So that just about wraps it up, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, thank you ever so much again for taking part in the interview, and
pleasure.
Really appreciate it, and let's hope we've got your book to an even wider audience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carl. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.